Hello viewers, welcome to the next lecture in Power Apps course. In previous video we have learned about gallery control in Power Apps, and in today's video we are going to start with SharePoint basics. So click on this link, and these are the notes for today's lecture. So let's start exploring what is SharePoint. Okay, so before explaining the concept about SharePoint, let me show you one diagram. And this is the basic scenario, or this is the basic structure of any software application that you currently use. Okay, so every time what will we have? So suppose this is your application. Okay, and each application, the end users can interact with that application. Okay, so for example, this is our Amazon application, and these are its users. So these users can create their account, they can place orders, they can view the different products, they can initiate refund process, return process. So all these transactional data will get saved in the backend. Okay, so there would be some kind of database. Okay, so all these applications need some kind of database where the data gets stored. Okay, so in this case, this is our Power Apps application, and it will interact with the backend database. Okay, so SharePoint is one of the most common database that we use in Power Apps applications. Okay, so I have worked with lot of Power Apps applications, and I saw that out of 100, 50 to 60 applications would be developed on SharePoint. Okay, and rest of the 50% would be on different data sources like SQL, Dataverse, or some third party data sources. Okay, I hope now the concept about what is database is clear about you, and this concept was for those who were not aware about what is database, and how the application need a database to store the data. Okay, let's see what is SharePoint. SharePoint is a web-based platform developed by Microsoft, and it basically used to collaborate, manage, and share information and documents among the team members. Okay, you can access information from any location when you have the internet connection. So basically, SharePoint is just like a website, and that website will store your different data, like your employee information, your asset information, or your project related information, and that you can share with your teammates. Then SharePoint is typically used as an intranet, that means for communicating between internal users to share the documents with internal team or organization. It's basically a document management system where you can have collaboration capabilities, and you can also develop or integrate the workflows with SharePoint. So SharePoint basically provides different range of features, like you can have list, document libraries, you can develop calendars, discussion boards, surveys, and task list. Okay, so our main focus would be on what is SharePoint list and what is document libraries. This lecture is for those who are not aware about SharePoint basics, and for Power Apps development, SharePoint basics are very important. You should understand how SharePoint works, how it saves the data, how you can upload documents into SharePoint, because Power Apps is only for developing the application. Okay, whatever data that you will see in the Power Apps application, that will get stored in the backend, and that backend is nothing but SharePoint. There would be different kind of backend databases, SharePoint, SQL, Dataverse, but the main basic concept for you is to learn the SharePoint basics. If you are already aware about SharePoint basic, you can totally skip this video, because I'm just going to cover what is list and document libraries. I'm not going into much details, because for a Power Apps developer, it is only required to understand about how list and document libraries work, and a little bit understanding about how permissions will work. I will also try to put some thoughts on the permissions in SharePoint. It also allows users to create and publish web pages, blogs, and wikis. SharePoint can be integrated with other Microsoft products such as Office 365, which is now Microsoft 365, Exchange and Teams, as well as any third-party tools. SharePoint can be deployed on premises. That means if your organization don't want to expose the data to cloud, they can deploy the SharePoint to their own premise. Okay, this is bit advanced concepts. You don't need to worry much about these. So now let's see what is SharePoint list. SharePoint list provide a flexible and customizable platform for storing and working with data. Okay, so just think like an Excel sheet. In Excel sheet, we have rows and columns. In each row, we put some data, okay, and the columns represent the categorization of that data. So you have first name, last names, job description, mobile number. So all these are the columns, and the rows represent the actual data. The columns represent the category of that data. Similarly, SharePoint list provide the similar behavior with the help of SharePoint list. So basically, SharePoint list is a collection of data that is organized in row and columns, much like a spreadsheet. For example, if you want to manage the tracking of projects, tasks, or if you want to manage customer information, or you want to maintain the inventory of your assets, we can use SharePoint list. To create a SharePoint list, you first need to have SharePoint site. Now, what is SharePoint site? SharePoint site is basically a place where you can create SharePoint list libraries and you can share that entire site with your organizational users or with your teams so that all the member of that team can access that SharePoint site, and the list and libraries inside that SharePoint site they can access. So let's first create one SharePoint site so that you will get understanding about what is SharePoint site and how we can create SharePoint list inside that SharePoint site. So I have logged into office.com using our developer account that we have created in our earlier session. Click on this hamburger menu and you will see one option of SharePoint. Just click on that SharePoint, and this is a landing page of your SharePoint site. Okay, and this is not a site, but it's a centralized place from where you can navigate to different SharePoint sites. So for example, I have already created one site which is Office 365 notes. I have AM cloud site. All these are SharePoint sites. So you when you first time log into this page or the SharePoint site, you might not see any of the site here, so just click on create site. Now you get two options, team site and communication site. I will not go into much details about the difference between these two. So for now, just create a team site, put some name, leave app, click on next and click on finish. And you see that you now got a brand new SharePoint site. And in the URL, you can see that you get your domain name, sites slash leave app. So this is our actual SharePoint site. So when you create multiple sites, this domain name would be same. Only the difference would be you will get a different site name. Inside this site, if you go to site contents, this is a place where you can see existing libraries and list. So Microsoft by default provides few template libraries in the site contents. So we will now see how to create a SharePoint list. So on your SharePoint site, just go to site contents and click on new and click on list. Here select a blank list, and here we can give some name. For example, I will say employee information, and let's click on create. In this way, we have created our first SharePoint list. That list will by default have one column which is title. If you want to add more columns, just click on this add column. Select a type of the column. So this is one of the feature that we will see. What is key features? You can create any type of columns like text, number, date, choice. So I'll first create one more text column. I will say full name, then create another column. Let's say it's of choice. and we can say the choice as gender. It would be male, female, only two options, and default value you can put. So default value is none. So I'll click on save, and let's add one more column which is of type multiple line of text, and we would say address. Click on save. Now if you see this is similar to Excel sheet. Okay, in the consider this like an Excel sheet. This is the top row, which is the header of your list, and now the bottom we will get a different data. So to add one row here, we can click on new, and you will get one form. So this form, once you fill this form and once you save this data will get stored in this SharePoint list. So let me say Mr. Mayuresh Doshi, gender is male, and address is Pune, India. I will save this. You have the ability to attach the attachments as well, so that you can attach your different documents. So this attachment field, you can add multiple attachments. For example, I'll click on attach, and let's say I'll add these two documents, and you see that those got attached, and now I can click on save. So as soon as it got saved, you can now see there is one row here. uh, Let me add one more. This time I'll say test test test. I'll save it, and you see that we have now two rows. Now you can delete these rows. For example, select the item and delete it. You can edit that item back. So for example, I want to change my address. I can change that, and you see that it got reflected here. You can edit this in grid view so that it will give you a Excel like feature. For example, this one, test 1 2 3. You can see that I can just edit like a Excel sheet. Even you can copy paste the data from your Excel sheet into this grid, which is also one of the feature in SharePoint list. So let's see about some key features. Customizable columns, which we have already seen. For example, you can create multiple columns in SharePoint. Multiple type of columns like text, number, date, and choice. You can set custom properties for each column, such as validation rules and default values. So these are a bit advanced. For this course, at least it is not needed as of now. The default value I just already showed you. Like for example, this gender column, if you want to put it as default as male, we can do that. So just edit that column and set the default as male. So when the next time you click on new, it will by default show you the male property here. Next is views. Okay, so for example, um, views is a feature in SharePoint list which will allow you to see different metadata in different views. Now, what is metadata? It's just these columns. For example, I want to have one view which will just show me the list of full names. I don't want this title, gender, and address. So, here on the top right corner, you can create one new view. I will say full name view, and you can make the visibility to public or private and click on create. And now this view is created, full name view. I don't want these columns in this view now, so I will say now you can uncheck the unwanted columns and click on apply. Now you see that this view only has one column. If you switch back to all items view, which was a default view, you can see remaining columns. Just refresh this, and you see that that view is showing the data properly. If you switch back to full name view, you will see only full names. So basically, SharePoint list provides a feature to create different views based on your requirement. Then you can manage permissions. I'm not going to cover permissions at this point. Let's take some time to understand about list and libraries. I'll come to this point in a few minutes. Then you can definitely integrate SharePoint list with workflows, forms, dashboards, as well as any third-party tools. And most important, in our course, we are going to integrate SharePoint list with our Power Apps. Okay. Now, I hope you're clear about what is SharePoint list, how it stores the data. The intention behind explaining about SharePoint list is that in future or in upcoming videos, we are going to develop Power Apps which will use SharePoint list as a backend data source. Now let's learn about document library. Document library is a feature in SharePoint which allows you to store, organize, and share the documents. So let's go back to site contents. And here you can see all the list and libraries that we have created or which are by default present in SharePoint. So we have created the SharePoint employee information list. You can see the type as list. But we have other libraries as well. If you see documents, form template, site assets, style library, site pages, all these are the document library. You can see the icon as well. Let's create our own document library by clicking on new and document library. Give it a name as contract documents. So let's see, I want to save the contract documents in my SharePoint site. So I can create this. And this is now a kind of folder. This is not a list. Now there is a difference between list and document library. List only stores the data and it stores the files as an attachment. So each record can store multiple attachments in SharePoint list. But the document library is a kind of place, or we can say it as a folder. Inside that you can store multiple files and each file will have its metadata. Let me explain you this in Paint. So list, so you will have different records in list. Each record will have multiple documents. Okay. So let's say this is document 1, document 2, document 3. Similarly, document 1, 2, 3. So these are different items in SharePoint list. Okay. Now what is document library? So document library will have documents inside the document library, and each document can have different metadata. For example, this is first document, second document, third document, and fourth document. So first document, I want to say, uh, I want to store the date by which this document is getting expired or this contract is getting expired. I can store another field saying what is the document type. I can store another field as when this document got uploaded. I can see who is the owner of this document. So if you see, what is difference between list and document library is that list will have different items, each item will have different attachments. Document library will have documents inside it and each document will have its properties defined. So let's see now. In document libraries, I can upload the document. I can upload the folders. So I will click on files and let's say I can attach this document. Now it's uploading, and as soon as it uploaded, you can see it here. Now you can, similar to the SharePoint list, you can add the columns as I explained. So let's add one date column and we'll say expiry date. You can say it as date and time, include time or not, and save it. And you see that expiry date column is added. Let's add one more column which is of type owner. So who is the owner of that document? So it is a people picker column. So we can create different type of columns in SharePoint list and libraries. And now when you see, I can now modify the properties by clicking on these three dots, more, properties, and here I can set expiry date to 23. Owner will be, let's say, Mayuresh. And when you close that, you can see that data got updated. Now, the document inside document library cannot have attachment because this is itself is a kind of attachment. Okay, so this is a basic difference between document library and SharePoint list. Let's move to the next um, features. What are the key features of SharePoint document library? So you can create custom metadata. So metadata is nothing but you can create your own columns, like who is the author of that document, what is the document date, what is the department of that document, for which project that document is going to upload. Then you have the version control. So in future, if you upload some another document with the same name, or if you modify this document, now this is PDF, so you cannot change anything here. But let me do one thing. I will create one document which is a Word document, okay, and it will open that document in browser itself. You can put some create that document easily, and it will get auto saved. So if you see here, it will just close this and you see that document got uploaded here a few seconds ago. Now if you see, this has a version history. That means when it was got created, who has updated the document. So if you see, currently we have only two versions. First version is when I created that document. Second version is when I edited that document. Now let's edit this document one more time. So I'll say test 123 and I will now close this document. And you should see another version got created, which is of version 3. Now you can restore these versions so that if you change anything accidentally, you can restore the versions, or you can even open those documents by clicking on that version name. But I just wanted to tell you that document library has this feature of versioning. Then you can check in, check out. That means once you check in the document, no other user can edit that document. So SharePoint provides the ability to update the document by multiple users. For example, if I sh- I share this SharePoint site with my colleague, he can also open this document at the same time, and he can make the changes at the same time, and I can see his changes in a live session. For example, if this document is opened by my colleague, his name will appear here and it will say this document is being modified by that user as well. So if I don't want to allow someone else to edit the document at the same time, I can check out this document. So to check out the document, click on these three dots and click on checkout, and you see that red icon is there which says it is checked out. Now no one else other than me can edit this document until I check in it back. So we have the check in option where I can check in back. Now it is open for everyone to edit again. These are the features. You might not be needed all these features because we are into Power Apps development course. I just wanted to highlight you what are the different key features of document library, and definitely we can again integrate it with any third party tools, SharePoint or workflows, Power Apps and everything. Now the last point is, let me put some thoughts on what is permissions in SharePoint. So if you see here, this site has been shared with Mayuresh because I'm the owner of this site. We can add different members. For example, I will add some users from my organization. And if you see, I can either make them owner or member. So owner will have some higher privileges. For example, they can create more document libraries, they can delete document libraries. But members is like they will have less privileges. So they can edit. So here you see the details. Site owner will have full control. Site members can edit, view, and the site content and all those things. But just for now, understand that we have the ability to add members to site. Now you see that this SharePoint has now 3 users who can access this SharePoint site. And similar to that, you can restrict permissions on individual item level. You can restrict permission on library level. All those details we can learn as we proceed further in this course. But at this moment, it is only required for you to understand about list and libraries. That's it. Because we are going to store our SharePoint Power Apps data into SharePoint list and libraries. You should aware about what is SharePoint list, how you can create different columns, different type of columns, for example, text, single line of text, multiple line of text, choice, date column, people picker. All these columns you should be able to create in that SharePoint list. Let me put you some more thoughts on where you can see the existing columns. So this is a SharePoint list. Just go to click on these 3 dots and go to settings. The same steps are applied for library as well. So for this employee information list, this is SharePoint list. I have these columns: title, full name, gender, address, modified, created by, modified by. These are 4 default columns given by Microsoft, and this is also one default column. These are the custom columns that we have created at the start of this lecture. You can delete these columns by just clicking on that column, and you can delete it from here. You can change type of that column. You can set some default value to that column. So once you start exploring about what are the different options that SharePoint list provides, you will be able to get more idea on what are the different capabilities it has. I hope you are now clear about what is SharePoint basics, what is mean by SharePoint, SharePoint list, document libraries. Um, just try to explore more about the SharePoint list and libraries on internet. So the assignment for you would be create one SharePoint list. Take some example of employee management. Create one employee management list. Inside that, try to save first name, last name, mobile number, address, gender, all these details. Try to save those details into your SharePoint list. And in upcoming videos, we are going to see how we can add the SharePoint list into our Power Apps, and how we can add data, how we can create the actual business case application with the help of the SharePoint lists. Till then, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel so that you will get notified about upcoming lectures. And I will keep updating this course. So please subscribe to this channel. And finally, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.